time to die.
Please, no!
Die.
Someone help!
Oh, die!
So in the next 2 years, as this new generation of consoles kicks off, a lot of bold and unprecedented gaming mechanisms will be making their debut, and it's going to be an interesting time to see what flops and what becomes revolutionary. And for me, the biggest question really in that regard has to do with the new Bungie game, Destiny. So obviously Destiny will be a first-person shooter, but I think it might also generate its own subgenre, just as games like Borderlands and Call of Duty have in their own way formed their own categories or subgenres within the first-person shooter genre. So the big new thing that Destiny is implementing is this real-time on-the-go matchmaking that, from what they've said, should give the game an open-world MMO feeling. They themselves describe this new subgenre as a shared world shooter, and this is freaking awesome. And it's something I've wanted for a very, very long time. And I know a lot of other people have too. And this is why I think Destiny might be a revolutionary game, because it's filling in a hole, or at least it's attempting to fill in a hole of consumer desire that has been empty in the entire gaming industry up to this point, period. And potentially beyond. You know, we don't know if Destiny will succeed or fail. But keep in mind, revolutionary game-changing shit is what Bungie does. Halo was a game changer. So first we have to examine what the gaming consumer wants and how and why developers have tried and failed to meet the challenge so far. And speaking from personal experience, I believe I can give you a clear idea of where the breakdown stems from, because a lot of people have basically my same story. You watching this might have your own version of it as well. The first time I wanted a game like Destiny was when I was 7 years old, and I had just beaten the first Knights of the Old Republic on the original Xbox, and I remember when it was over, I was really sad because I had put a lot of time into my character, you know, pimping out his stats and equipment and you know, building his relationships. And you know, when you're that young, you really do feel like an emotional attachment, not only to your character, but to the other NPCs in the game as well. Like, I was like, well shit, I don't get to hang out with Bastila anymore. I was about to bang this girl too, goddammit. I wanted to just keep playing the game. It would be what is traditionally described in MMOs as endgame content, but even that might be misleading because I wanted the story to never end, and that was the feeling that I got on every single open world game I played, because the thing open worlds do is it's so fucking immersive that you inevitably get attached to the world and its character and your own character, especially if you're younger. Like nowadays it's kind of sad because I'm older, it's a lot harder to get that immersive feeling. Like I've been playing Grand Theft Auto, and it's fun, but I can sense this distinct difference between how it feels now and how it felt to play San Andreas. You know, back in San Andreas, I really felt like a thug on the motherfucking street, and I was like, oh shit, this is what the hood life is all about. And they do a great job of realistic dialogue, and so the cutscenes felt so real, and the characters felt so authentic. But now, in Grand Theft Auto 5, I find myself most of the time just sort of chuckling at how unrealistic most of the situations are. Like in one mission, you know, a drug deal in the ghetto goes bad, and it's this really poor neighborhood, and you're just dealing like a couple ounces in a doorway, you know, to some thug, and you end up, the drug deal goes bad, and you end up fighting a small army of gangsters, like 40 guys, and it's you and your friend and your dog, and you kill them. And it's fun, but it's not immersive for me anymore because I'm just sitting there thinking like, man, not even professional drug cartels, not even the motherfucking Al-Qaeda would have this much manpower at some massive drug deal in the desert, much less two thugs trying to score in the ghetto. And the other problem is that I judge graphics a lot more harshly now, and not that graphics should define a game or whether or not it's good, but it's certainly a lot harder to get immersed in a game with bad graphics after you've played games with stunning graphics. And I'm not necessarily talking about Grand Theft Auto here, I'm talking about the Old Republic, that Knights of the Old Republic MMO that I thought would be the answer to all my dreams, but the graphics were worse than the graphics on Knights of the Old Republic 1. On the original Xbox, and that didn't ruin the game for me, but it was certainly a contributing factor. And I'll talk more about the Old Republic in a second, because really, the Old Republic and games like it were trying to fill in that consumer hole I was talking about. They just didn't do it correctly, and Tor is really a prime example of that. And it's not the game's fault, that's just, you know, it's just part of growing up. But when I was younger, boy did it suck when I had to leave an open world behind me when I had put so much time and love into that world, you know? Now, other open world games like Morrowind or Oblivion, which I loved, had endgame content and even some replayability, and obviously you could keep playing after the main story was finished and most of the side quests were done. But what was left to do got kind of old because it wasn't dynamic, it wasn't changing, it wasn't new, and also by that time you were basically OP as shit and nothing was a challenge anymore. And again, that's inevitable in any single player game. So naturally, I drifted towards MMOs. I played a shitload of RuneScape, and the beautiful thing about open world MMOs, that is, well, all MMOs are open world, I suppose, to one degree or another, that is that the players themselves can create a nearly infinite amount of dynamic changing gameplay. When I got bored of quests, I joined a clan. So this is back before all the 2007 bullshit updates. We had clan wars, right? You have a lot of clan wars, and man, was that shit intense. 200 people fucking duking it out, where you take your clan and you go fight the motherfucking King Black Dragon. I remember one time my clan was fighting this motherfucking King Black Dragon, and this other clan came to fight the King Black Dragon, and they found us instead, and we're having this fucking clan war right there in the KBD cave. We're duking it out. The dragon is dropping motherfuckers indiscriminately. Everyone's shouting out orders and tactics, and it was so fun and intense, and it wasn't something that the developers designed. It wasn't linear, and it was totally unexpected. It was an experience that we, the players, had created. And that right there sums up the beauty of an MMO, the players themselves creating dynamic experiences. It adds a level of creativity and freshness and replayability that will never be present in a single-player game, even one as intricate and detailed as the Grand Theft Auto single-player experience. Another good example was in 2007 when RuneScape finally died. It didn't die in 2007, but that was the beginning of the end, and any of you RuneScape vets know that. The developers announced they were taking out all player killing, implementing a whole bunch of dumb shit to stop people from trading real-life money for in-game stuff, and it pissed off pretty much every player I knew. And a clan, one of the bigger, more popular clans, staged a protest and got on the forums and invited everyone to join them. All right, wear pink in Falador Square if you don't want these changes, was what they said. And across dozens of servers, thousands of players put on pink capes or pink hats, pink boots, and pink dresses, summoned pink monsters, and wielding pink flowers. And I joined because I was upset too. Like, I knew this was the death of the game, and there was like 1,000 people there. And all kinds of crazy pink shit going on, and everyone was entering random commands for dancing and hopping and jumping jacks. We were all writing about how dumb Jagex was, and I remember I laughed hella hard when one guy was sprinting around shouting that he was selling blood and semen for the end of the world. It was exactly like Occupy Wall Street, except it was Occupy fucking Falador. And that was an incredibly unique event. It was so immersive because even though the RuneScape graphics were garbage, it was a real, organic, unprecedented, non-linear experience that was not designed by the developers. It was put in motion by a group of players, and then it took on a life and a personality of its own when everybody joined in. And I have so many memories like that from RuneScape that are just as real as my real life memories. The Falador protests failed, however, and in 2007, RuneScape commits suicide. So I moved on. I played Oblivion. And this is the second time I felt a burning desire for a game like Destiny. I remember thinking, man, that would be so fucking cool if I could have the best parts of RuneScape in Oblivion. If I could get a clan war going on in Oblivion, or go dragon hunting, or even just go to the market and take part in the in-game economy. That would be so fucking cool. If you could combine the immersive effect of an open world with the dynamic player-driven content of an MMO, what a perfect game that would be. And that's basically the formula that World of Warcraft was able to apply effectively, and that's why people's lives were destroyed on that game. However, WoW was on the computer, and that immediately cuts out the entirety of the casual gaming audience, which at the time included me. The difference between us RuneScape players and a WoW player was that we had shit computers, and WoW was also missing the third and final element that I think Destiny is shooting for, that I will be getting to shortly. So I remember thinking if I could play RuneScape on the Oblivion engine, I still get excited just thinking about something like that, and I wanted a game combination like that for Elder Scrolls, Knights of the Old Republic, most recently Borderlands, even Mass Effect. And you know what's funny is I believe all four of those games are to some degree or another going to try and make their own MMO. We know Elder Scrolls is, we know Knights of the Old Republic did, and I've heard rumors for Borderlands and Mass Effect. And as I said earlier, I know a lot of other people felt this way too, and that's why they came out with Star Wars: The Old Republic. That's why they have Elder Scrolls Online, because a lot of people had the exact same line of thinking that I did. These titles are trying to fill that hole, the hole of desire that can only be filled by three pillars, the first two pillars being, or I guess pillars wouldn't, well yeah, pillars could fill a hole. I guess they wouldn't be pillars at that point, but it can only be filled by three pillars. Two of those pillars are an immersive player-driven video game. That is, one pillar is the immersion, second pillar is the player-driven content. And I'll remain optimistic about Elder Scrolls Online. I just hope it doesn't flop the way the Old Republic has. And that game did flop. I believe they peaked at 1.7 million subscribers right after launch. And 6 months after that, they had fallen below 1 million, and within a year, they had lost they had lost well over 1 million subscribers, and that's why within a year of release they had made basically the entire game free to play. And if that had been their original intention, it would have been mentioned in the 4 years of pre-game hype they did on their website with full forums and weekly updates on the state of development. The mistake that was made with Star Wars was that the developers were mistaken about what it was the consumer wanted. They thought the whole was shaped differently. They arrogantly thought they could just make KOTOR a multiplayer experience and bake in on it big time. The problem was, because Knights of the Old Republic was story driven, they applied the exact same formula to the MMO, so the game was conceived and created with an intense focus and emphasis on the storyline, and the morons thought that would be a revolutionary tactic. And indeed, they advertised the game as exactly that. I remember because I was paying very close attention to the pre-game development. I had an account on their forums, and I checked the site regularly for new info. I was excited for this shit because I thought it would be everything I had wanted, right? All they could talk about was the story-driven gameplay and how awesome it was that they had legit voice acting for every single NPC. And I think when they really began to realize they had made a mistake was after this time they had posted a developer's video, and the stupid fools had said in the video that the way they envisioned people playing the game was that the player would play through one character's story, beat it, and then try out a new character's story. They literally said that, like those were almost their exact words, and immediately after, everyone started raising their eyebrows. I started raising my eyebrows because, like I was talking about, part of the joy of both MMOs and open world games in general is putting a lot of time into a character and pimping that character out and making it unique, and the emotional attachment that follows, and then trying to make that character more powerful than everybody else's character. And the whole reason people wanted this game was because we hated having to give up our single player characters in KOTOR, and that was the moment I realized this game wasn't for me, and a lot of other people shared that complaint on the forums, and there was enough complaining that the devs had to release an entire website update post that assured everyone that Star Wars The Old Republic did have endgame content, but they were bullshitting. They spent 5 years pimping out the storylines, and in the last 6 months decided they should make some endgame content too. And it's not just that people didn't want to give up their characters, it's that storylines are by definition linear. There's no way around it. Now granted, making your own choices and dialogue options add a level of replayability and immersion and personalization, but it's still linear. It's just that at the end of one line, you get to choose one of 2 other lines going in somewhat different directions. Regardless of dark side or light side, each experience has already been laid out before you and designed by the developer. So obviously what I'm sort of advocating is more sand in the sandbox, so to speak. People want more creative control, and that's what you see with Minecraft and why Minecraft has been so wildly successful. It is a sandbox gameplay taken to its most logical extreme. You know, I've been finally getting into that game after a year of sort of scoffing at it, and I'll tell you, it's very satisfying to put a lot of work into a building, a structure, and crafting all the various pieces of it, the windows, the doors, the furniture, and whatnot. And precisely because you have this intellectual ownership of it, precisely because it is unique, you created it, and it is yours. That is what makes it special. And again, that doesn't work in something with a storyline. If you play The Old Republic or any game where there are choices to be made, mathematically speaking, there is another player out there who has made all the exact same choices you have and had the exact same experience. But Minecraft is an extreme, and although it does claim its own niche of consumer desire, I do not think it fills the specific hole of desire that I am speaking about and that Destiny is attempting to fill, because the hole I'm discussing does have a significant amount of structure to it, and Minecraft does not. RuneScape had structure, KOTOR had structure, Skyrim had structure. There is an overarching narrative of good versus evil, of needs and goals, whereas Minecraft is such a deep sandbox that there's no real objective or point to any of it. And some people really love that, but for me personally, and I think for others like me searching to fill this hole I keep talking about, Minecraft can have a deflating feeling sometimes. For instance, I put a lot of work into building this super skyscraper with indoor waterfalls and underground fishing holes and different colored carpets on every level with windows and paintings and bookshelves and a moat and booby traps, but then when I finished it, that was it. I was done with it. There was nothing I could do with it other than show it off to some of my friends, and the ones that don't play Minecraft didn't give a shit, and the ones that do pretended they care, but they don't, because I'm a noob and they've already built much cooler shit. But I digress. Completing goals, accomplishing things, for me anyways, has a lackluster feeling to it when you realize it's pointless, and I guess you could say all gaming accomplishments are pointless at the end of the day, and that's kind of true, but there is definitely a different sort of enjoyment and satisfaction when you kill a dragon in Skyrim as opposed to finishing a project in Minecraft. And the other catch to Minecraft obviously is the immersion. I understand the necessity of the simplicity of those graphics, but after a game like Skyrim or Fallout or Far Cry, it's really hard to feel immersed in Minecraft graphics. And again, like I was talking about earlier, immersion is a big factor here. So there needs to be an objective, an incentives and reward system, and that's what was really cool about RuneScape and all MMORPGs, is that the game structure provided creates goals that require needs, and so people went about finding sandbox ways to meet their various needs. And the coolest sandbox creations, I think, are in-game economies, and the in-game economy worked much like the real world economy. It had inflation. Prices were always fluctuating because everyone was always pursuing different goals at different times, and because the structure of the game allowed for so many different goals, whether it was leveling up one of the 25 skills or completing a quest or preparing for a clan war. And with so many ways of meeting those goals, the in-game economy became it took on its own life, its own player-driven life. You had clever ways that players would find, and they would start their own businesses. They would have these elaborately designed methods of making money and delivering resources, and literally they would have employees, and everyone would work together, and each person would get a certain part of the pie. And it wasn't necessarily money, like people would get different kinds of resources from from working together to complete a single task. Like if you wanted free law runes, which were expensive, you could deliver rune essence to this far off island where rune crafters were trying to level up their rune crafting, but didn't have the time to keep going back and forth to the island, so everybody wins. I get law runes, they get rune crafting experience. Everybody wins, and it's this super clever idea that was thought up by players, and so it's a sandbox creation, but more importantly, it's a sandbox creation that overcomes a challenge or solves a problem. And so that is the third pillar. It includes the best of both worlds, enough structure to face challenges, but enough sandbox to choose how you face them. And obviously that's the goal of character customization and skill trees. Here's a bad guy, you decide how to kill him, but that by itself doesn't go far enough, at least not anymore. The whole of consumer desire wants creative and unique external customization in facing complex challenges, ways that they can work together in the sandbox, along with personal ownership of the experience itself. And that's where I would argue that World of Warcraft and every other MMO fall short of filling the hole in its entirety. If you're trying to conquer a certain raid in WoW, you generally know exactly what kind of team you need, exactly how to execute, and the challenge is in executing properly, not in overcoming said challenge creatively. And that's not to say that RuneScape or any other MMO succeeded where WoW didn't. That would be a lie, and criticizing WoW always has to be done tongue-in-cheek because, again, it's the most successful MMORPG of all time. And so those are the three pillars, right? Immersion, player-driven content, and the ability to overcome challenges with sandbox solutions. And with the whole defined, now the question is, can Destiny fill it? Tune in next time to find out. This is Batman, signing out.
Look at this, dude.
Big win, job done. Operation complete. Nice job, squad. Never a doubt. Good job.